Today on Cooking with Gerry, we're making coconut bread. You can see I have 2 coconuts right here. About 3 hours ago, one of the workers picked these 2 coconuts off of one of the trees, about 20 meters from my kitchen. He broke them open and he and the owner drank the coconut water inside. But they did not want the white fleshy part on the inside, so I asked if I could have them, and the owner said yeah. And then I got the idea, let's make some coconut bread. It's a friend's birthday tomorrow, so I'm going to make this coconut bread and bring it to him later today. He's about a 15-minute walk where he lives up the mountain. So I'll bring that later today when it cools off enough to carry it with me. But the next step is I need to break open these coconuts and scoop out the flesh that's inside. So that's what I'll do, and we'll be back as soon as I'm done. Oh, you can also see the fire. I developed a new method a few weeks ago. It uses less wood. The fire, the heat is a lot more concentrated because I can contain the heat. Not so much is wasted. But it's still about 15 or 20 minutes away from being ready, which will probably work out perfectly once I break open the coconuts and we go through together what the batter is going to be. So I'll be back whenever it takes for me to get these coconuts and for the fire to be ready. Okay, we're back. Check it out. I got this much coconut, which is quite a bit for 2 coconuts. The inside part wasn't fully mature, so it wasn't thick and hard. It was soft and thin, and it's also much easier to remove with a spoon compared to when it's fully mature. And then I just chopped it up with a knife, so I have small pieces of coconut. And that's enough because we're not doing a very big cake. This is it. So it's a very shallow dish. So let's go. I have 2 eggs in this bowl. I am going to add about a little bit over half a teaspoon of pink salt. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of virgin olive oil. Sometimes I use butter, sometimes coconut oil. Today it's virgin olive oil. And then I'm going to mix the 2 eggs, the oil, and the salt. And then I'm going to add, this is white wheat flour. Now, wheat flour is very processed, and it means it's going to turn into sugar very quickly once it gets into your stomach. 2, 3, 4. But this is kind of like a birthday cake, and I'm not putting actual sugar. So I am taking that kind of freedom with making this cake, which is more of a sweet bread. This is whole wheat flour. I'm putting the same quantity, 4 tablespoons. And then here I have plantain powder. It's very similar. It's made from the plantain. And again, it's going to be one of those quick to turn into sugar once it gets into your stomach. This plantain flour or powder makes the cake batter at the final product almost velvety, which is nice. So that's why I wanted to use the plantain flour with this. And what I prepared about 1 hour ago, I'll explain. I put about half a cup of water in my saucepan and I brought it almost to a boil. Then I took 2 handfuls of dried fruit that I have a mixture in a bag of cranberries, yellow raisins and purple raisins. I washed them, and I even used the scissors to cut some of the raisins because they were big. And if there's more little pieces of raisins, it means it's going to be more evenly distributed within the batter. And then I put that rinsed dried fruit into the boiling water. Not quite boiling, it was almost boiling. And then I also put 4 tablespoons of powder, a combination of quinoa and amaranth. Those are both seeds that they grind so fine that it acts almost like a flour. Still fairly high in the sugar content, but also good numbers for the protein. And then I also put 1 tablespoon of maca root powder and 1 tablespoon of 7 seeds powder, which has a lot of flavor. The dominant flavor for me is the anise seed. So that's in here. That's been sitting here for about an hour, and the dried fruit has absorbed the water, which will make it more plump, which I think is important when you're baking any kind of dried fruit. It's nice to allow that dried fruit to soak up some water, because the baking process dries it out, especially if it's on the surface or if it's touching the sides of the cake tin. I hear an animal. There's a hummingbird. So that's going in, and I'm going to mix everything together, and then we'll add the coconut. It's important to put the coconut in small pieces so that it's easier to combine with this powder flour mixture, and eggs and oil and salt. So now just mix it as best as you can without exaggerating. And that's good. Now I'm going to add all of this into here. It's important also to take the hard parts off the coconut, the shell pieces that can very easily stay attached to the coconut flesh. Oh, this looks good already. And also with the dried fruit soaking in water, that liquid, I mean, there wasn't really a liquid with this one, but many times I'll just soak the dried fruit in water. That liquid is very sweet, and it's good to use in a cake batter or a pancake batter. It adds that sweetness without having to add sugar. So that looks great. I'm going to get some space for myself and show you the next part of the process. So here I have a very shallow, rounded baking dish that I lined with oven paper. And I used the scissors to cut around the edges. Not needing it to be perfect, but because I'm going to wrap it in tin foil, I don't want the edges to be too high. And then I just put the batter. Now this might be too much batter for this small, shallow tray. Oh, it's a dog, one of the neighbor's dogs, howling at something. So yeah, I can't use the whole batter. Maybe I'll make a pancake with what's left. Also, this kind of method, there's not the best transfer of heat, so you can't really do a deep dish anything if you don't have an oven. I don't have an oven, which is why I developed this process. And I'm just banging it down to flatten it. And that's it. I'll show you. I have pieces of tin foil. I made a bread this morning, so they were used this morning, but I've used them about 5 or 6 times, you can see, and this is probably the last time I'll be able to use them because there's too many holes. I have an extra sheet of tin foil that will help to strengthen and cover up the holes that are in this recycled piece of tin foil. And then I put the shallow dish round cake tin inside. And without exaggerating, I just try and close the edges so that the heat stays inside. And now that's ready to go on the fire, and then the fire is perfect. I'm just going to move it a little bit. There was one big piece of wood that had turned into charcoal that I broke up just about 5 minutes ago. And this will be enough heat. This is a very thick metal frying pan. And this is, I think, my 5th time using this method. The heat stays contained. And I don't need charcoal. I can just let the wood burn for about half an hour or an hour, whatever is most convenient. And because it's contained, it's going to burn long and slow. And the other part of my method, excuse me if you can't see me, I have this welded piece of grill. The iron rebars are welded together. I put that on top, the first layer, and this is just a thick aluminum roofing that it was in the storage. That I recycled. I folded it in 3, hammered it down to make it as flat as possible. And that's kind of like the barrier between the hot wood ember and this cake bread batter. So then all I have to do is put that on top like that, and I cover it. This is a giant lid for a saucepan that was here when I got here. I just cover it, and the heat stays pretty well contained. So that's going to be about 40 minutes. In about 40 minutes, the batter will be solid enough, it should be solid enough, that I'm going to remove it, and then I'll be able to put it more directly close to the hot wood embers. But we'll show you when we get there. For now, we wait about 40 minutes. It's now 45 minutes later. I checked at about 40 minutes and it wasn't quite solid enough, the top. But I think it's going to be like that because of all the coconut. I don't normally put any kind of dried fruit or vegetable when I use this method because the extra liquid from the fresh fruit or the fresh vegetables makes the batter a little bit less stable. So I think I'm going to have to do something I've never done before just to be able to continue with the cooking, because I'm pretty sure that bottom being so close to the hot embers for 45 minutes, the bottom's got to be cooked. It's just the top part that will need to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to remove the lid and very carefully, not like that, that'll burn my fingers. Picking it up, there we go. I have this cement circle that I made half a year ago to put hot plates, hot pots, hot pans. So it's still a little bit soft, but it looks and it smells great. And then from here, I'm going to use this small grill. It's got these 4 little triangular feet, I guess you want to call it, legs. So this is a fresh piece of oven paper. I'm going to put that on here, and then with my glove, actually, I think we have to do it this way. So that goes there, and then flipping it over on the cutting board, and then removing that. Yeah, I can see that the bottom of the bread is brown, so it's fully cooked. And I'm going to leave that paper on there for now. It'll be much easier to take off. Right now there's a lot of moisture. So this is going to go back onto, just centering it back onto this hot plate, the aluminum metal roof that I changed into a little layer, a barrier. And I'm going to cover again, and I think in about 15 minutes it should be ready. So we'll come back in 15 minutes or whenever it's ready, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, the coconut bread is done. As you saw before, I had it with the top part down on the oven paper. I let that cook for about 15 minutes. Then I removed that oven paper and I peeled off the oven paper that was on the original bottom. And that took a while. It happened to me this morning as well. I think when the batter is a bit more liquidy, that oven paper can stick. When the batter is dry, like a bread batter, then it's much easier to peel that oven paper off. So after those 15 minutes, I put it back all over the hot embers, but it was face down directly on this grill, and it looks really tasty. I'm going to bring it closer so you can see. So here, one of the problems, you can see one of the raisins is a little bit burnt. Another reason why I don't normally put dried fruit when I use this cooking method. But I wanted to show you, first of all, I don't have an oven, and second of all, it's a great idea for your next camping trip. You can have all the dry ingredients together already mixed in a bag, and then once you get to your campsite and you have the fire ready, you can mix the wet ingredients, which were eggs, some kind of oil or butter, a little bit of water, and mix everything together. And maybe you can bring with yourself something like this, or you can make some kind of container with aluminum foil. You don't need the tray, you can just put it directly on the aluminum foil. If you don't have oven paper, line the aluminum foil with some kind of oil so that it's not going to stick. And then you insulate it, cover it, seal it as best as you can, and then put it on your campfire. It doesn't have to be a nice round shape. It can be whatever you can make with however much aluminum foil you have. Great idea for a campsite. I know I would be really happy if someone made something like this for me while I was camping. And here is the leftover that I couldn't put into the small round cake tray. I just made a pancake. I put a little bit of butter in the frying pan, and on low heat I cooked it like a pancake, and this will be part of my dinner. So that's the coconut bread and the coconut pancake with the various ingredients. You can choose other flours, other powders, other dried fruit. Many times you can find grated coconut. I try not to eat sugar, so I would buy the unsweetened grated coconut. But you choose what you want. If you don't want to put the white sugar or brown sugar, but you want it to be sweet, then you can use the sweetened grated coconut. So lots of options, and I'm going to enjoy this for my dinner. And when I can deliver that to my friend for his birthday, the clouds have covered the sky and it kind of feels like it might rain. So if it does, I won't go to my friend's house tonight. I'll go tomorrow, which is his actual birthday. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and it's been fun.